No, thank you. I mean, that's critical. One other thing that I was going to ask you about, although we've touched on it a couple times already, is the acquisition policy. Um, are there opportunities that you see, perhaps you've talked about it in general, but specifically with the space economy and the drive to capture strategic advantage, the high ground, as it were, in space.
Mhm.
Um, what should governments and non-commercial space organizations be doing? I mean, you've mentioned the public-private partnership,
Yeah,
exploring together, and others. Would you have some specific recommendations, perhaps?
yeah, I do, and I think that. First of all, there's not a simple answer, but I can
Right.
give you a simple analogy, okay, that I think we can all understand and work toward. So if I instead of talking about space, okay, let me talk about the automobile, okay, and
Yes.
I as a transformation resource, as a transportation resource, and I think that it will help us understand. And I'll reconnect it to space in a minute. Uh, when the government invented satellite communications in order to solve beyond line of sight connectivity challenges. So an analogy of a car. Let's say, for example, that the government invented a car, and they invented a car because there was no one else that had the wherewithal to do that. So they invented the automobile, and so the government would specify an automobile and have a competition to build it at lowest price. Now, that worked for a while. And what the government would do then is they would have SUVs or they'd have automobiles that were two-door pickup trucks, whatever they needed in different types. And it was basically build to print kind of contracts at low price. Well, then when the technology started to change rapidly and the private sector engaged, and you saw vehicles of different types and vehicles that had electric engines and those kinds of things, all of a sudden the opportunity for the government was to lease, not buy. Okay, they
Right.
did not have to invent anymore. They could buy cars from others or even lease cars and then roll the technology every 2 or 3 years and renew the lease and keep our warfighters with a cutting edge, fresh new car that had the latest features and the latest safety attributes and the latest technologies. Okay, so leasing became smarter than buy. The problem with leasing is DoD never knows globally where the fight's going to break out. So you
Right.
have to lease cars in multiple geographies and you have to hold all that inventory at enormous cost. And you never know quite how many SUVs versus how many two doors versus how many whatever it might be, right? So you have to gamble that the mix and the different types are right. So technology keeps moving forward, and now we start innovating business models. Along comes Uber. Guess what? I don't need to own any cars. Okay. Whenever I need a ride, I download the app,
Right. You're
and
buying
that
the ride.
I download the app. The app is free. Okay. Now I only pay for a ride when I need a ride. Okay. And I call for a ride. And if I need a ride that has a pickup truck or an SUV or a sports car, a luxury car because it's date night with my wife or whatever it might be, I can call for the specific car I need and I only pay for the just for that particular ride. Okay. And by the way, that model scales. Okay. Because now if the fight breaks out in a certain geography and I need 75 rides in the next 15 minutes, I can probably call for that. And that inventory is there because when that inventory is not serving the DoD, the
Serving
inventory
somebody else.
it's serving the commercial market. So DoD just has to, they might pay a little premium to have that priority. But the fact is the opportunity is there. Now one says, well, what about competition? Well, instead of competing to buy cars on price, we should download the Uber app, the satellite version of the Uber app. We should download the satellite version of the Lyft app. We should download the satellite version of these other apps because we can have competition on a ride by
Right.
ride basis. So, for example, I can stand on the street corner and say, I need a ride from here to the train station. And I can activate the Uber app and ask for the ride. I can activate the Lyft app and ask for a ride. And one ride costs $2 more, but the car gets here 2 minutes earlier. And by the way, it's a nicer car. And I can make a decision on a case by case basis, on a competitive basis, which ride I prefer at this particular point in time. So now
So you actually have far more options.
this is the technology dividend that I keep talking about in terms of space. DoD has the opportunity they've never had before because the capacity, the resilience, the diversity of technology solutions that exist in space, LEO, MEO, GEO, the opportunity's never been better for DoD. But what they've got to do is adapt their acquisition model such that they can that they can access all of those choices and compete those choices. I'm going to argue at the Uber app or the Lyft app level, okay, so that DoD no longer has to hold satellite capacity all over the world in case they need it. And then it becomes aging in terms of its technology. DoD can always access the cutting edge technology by simply leveraging the enormous capacity, innovation, and resources that exist in space by the private sector. Now, it's not to say that they shouldn't have a military purpose-built system that they also use as a companion, but I'm only saying the opportunity exists that's never existed before for DoD to take advantage and exploit the private sector's investment and technology trajectory in space.